Hey, brand babies, it's your ghetto country grandmother. And today I want to talk to you about taking up space. It is not something that is easily done, but it's something that may be very necessary for you, especially as a solopreneur, being a business of one and out here trying to do do the damn thing by yourself. So let's get into it. I've been on this journey of self-discovery for a long ass time because I've always, well, I used to be afraid to take up space. And taking up space for me, I am a 6'1" Black woman. And when I was younger, that made me very self-conscious. One of the reasons I fight and probably will always fight on some level was because I was teased a lot as a kid. And I was teased mostly by dudes because I was taller than them. Motherfuckers had Napoleon complexes when I didn't even know what a Napoleon complex was. So I had to fight dudes. It was a way that I grew up. So I guess I get kind of angry when people punk out because no, we don't do that. But anyway, taking up space as a solopreneur means to have a voice about something that you're passionate about. And while I look at brand strategy as something that all solopreneurs need, I also understand that it's not for everybody. And when I talk about brand strategy, is because we need to know how to grow and scale our business. And I'm talking as a fellow solopreneur. Now, I knew how to scale my previous business. I got all that. But now doing it as a solopreneur, it hits different because I don't have my husband beside me doing it with me. That's not to say that he doesn't support me. So it hits different. I'm gonna share a story with y'all, okay? And I want you to get with this. Now, I remember when my water broke. I was about 25 weeks and some days, okay? And I woke up feeling like I had to go to the bathroom because I felt a little wet. And I went to the bathroom and it was nothing. So I went back to bed. Had the same feeling again, went up and went to the bathroom, went back to bed. And so when this happened for a third time, I decided, you know what? Get your ass on up. Stop shaking the bed and waking up your husband. And what I ended up doing is I sat at the table, I was flipping through a magazine and just kind of rubbing my belly. I was, like I said, I was only about 25 weeks, so I didn't have much. It was my first child. I was 42 years old, y'all. Okay. I was 42. I'm sitting here and I'm flipping through the magazine, and some said, you know, get up and get a towel because if you're peeing on yourself, you don't want to wet the seat. But when I got up to go get the towel, the dam burst. In other words, my water broke. And I wanted to freak out, but I couldn't. It just wasn't in me to be that person. I don't know. You know what? I've just always been that kind of hard. But anyway, the thing about it, I think the most common part is that I had prayed for this moment since my second miscarriage and since the third time that I had to beg my husband to try again. And even way back then, I decided that no matter what, I was going to have to be okay. Another part of the story is that I had to have two cerclages, and I'm not even going to go into that, but that's a different part of the story. But I had to have two cerclages to keep my daughter in. But I'm not, like I said, not going there. I want to come back here. I walked into the room and I shook Neil and I said, come on, babe, we got to go to the hospital. And he's like, okay, what's the matter? And I said, my water broke. And so he gets all nervous because he knows how far along I am. He knows what happened the previous two times. And so he gets up, he grabs his keys, and what? We rode through the streets of LA at 2 a.m, heading to the hospital. Now, I was more concerned about him than I was about my current situation. Because, like I said, I had prayed for my situation. But my husband was sitting there and he was squeezing my hand, just off and on, just squeezing my hand. And I know he was scared. And mind y'all, my husband is not the gushy type, but I knew what that tightness was. And what it made me do was it made me flash to the pain on his face of our second pregnancy. I had made it to 20 weeks and my daughter was coming. Yes, it was another girl back then. She was coming. And they said, we can't do anything for you. But what they did do for me is that they induced labor at 20 weeks. And my husband had to watch his wife go through the pain of labor only to watch his daughter die, and probably not even taking her first breath. They took a picture of her and all that kind of stuff. My husband said I couldn't keep the picture. He did not want it in the house. But again, another story for another time. So that squeezing of the hand reminded me of that moment. It just is what it is. But anyway, so as he squeezed my hand, I rubbed my belly and I spoke to my daughter. And I was telling her, you know what, your daddy's scared, but we're going to be all right. You know that? We're going to be okay. I told her stories about her grandmother, my mom, not my husband's mom, my mom, saying that, you know what, you're going to be so rotten because this is your granny's only grandbaby. You know she going to spoil you to death. And my sister was still alive then. And I told her about, you know what, she's going to be your favorite auntie. She is going to spoil you because she takes care of everybody's kids. Now she got a kid of her own. And she gets you. I even told her, you know what, that no matter what, if this is whatever it's going to be, if you're not here with me, I'll miss you, but I'll understand. And I'm saying all this on the ride to the hospital, and we get there, and no one seems in much of a rush. They took me in a wheelchair, they put me in a room, a doctor finally came in, and they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. So what they ended up doing, they gave me a shot in my ass and told me this is to help her lungs develop in case she comes early. And they admitted me into the hospital. They had expected me to be there for I don't know how long, but what it ended up being was 5 days in the hospital, filling me with IVs because my fluid was still leaking. So they're filling me up with fluids, and they kept me with my feet elevated, my head down. I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom. I couldn't even sit up to use a bedpan. It was like that. Ugh. Then at 4 a.m, on my third wedding anniversary, the nurse came in, she woke me up. She said, Miss Strada, we got to go in and get her. You have a fever of 104. She's doing something to you. I'm like, okay, y'all could have taken her 5 days ago. Because I was okay 5 days ago, just like I'm okay now. Because I feel like I had to be okay. This was my baby. And no matter what, we were going to be all right. My husband, he sat up in the chair that had been his place next to me for the last 5 days. He took my hand and we didn't really say much, but it was just the look on his face. Again, the look of fear of losing us or losing her. And I so did not want to cause him that pain again, but it was what it was. And still I remained calm. Now, as the doctors worked and we're in the delivery room and all that stuff, they're cutting me open to take her out. There was just a peaceful conversation between him and I, and they took her out. There was no fanfare. There was no high-pitched cry of a baby in the room. There were no moments of bonding. They took her straight from me over to a table, and they laid her there to give her oxygen, to get her to breathe. And I can only catch glimpses of this as I watched them move around and do their thing. And then I saw them get ready to wheel her away. I told my husband, go be with our daughter. I'm okay. Because I was still calm in that moment. The last thing I remember was the punk ass doctor who was doing the surgery that had taken her out saying to me, don't try to have any more kids. You have too many fibroids. Oh, all the motherfuckers that I could think of. He was, as I drifted off into this bliss of drugs. Okay. But that was 15 years ago. 15 years ago at the ripe age of 42. We refer to it now as our birth anniversary. She gets the even years, so she gets to celebrate her sweet 16 and her 18th and all that kind of stuff. And we get the odd years. But looking at now, I see how much of an impact they have on how I show up in my business, how I show up in my personal brand of the Ghetto Country Grandmother. I am a nurturer by nature. It's just always been that way. I call everybody my babies. I don't care if you're 2 or 52, 92. Them is my babies because I am the actual protective mother type. And the reason I say that is because, like I said, I grew up always wanting to be invisible, not wanting to have to fight all the fucking time. But nevertheless, that was my childhood. I'm not saying it was a bad childhood. It just is what it is. But being invisible was not a superpower for me. It was me feeling like I didn't deserve to be seen in a good way. Now I work in a profession where I expect, I encourage, I nurture my clients to not be invisible. I ask them, what do they want to be famous for? Because you have to want to be famous for something if you're going to build and scale and monetize whatever it is you're great at. I branded myself as the ghetto country grandmother. I was raised hood adjacent by a country mama. I got here by letting go of the myth that I wanted to be invisible. People talk about me in such a way, oh, we love you and all that stuff. And I think it's great and I appreciate it and I'm honored by it. But it's only because I became a mother and a wife that I learned to take up space because they support me in a certain way. And it's not that I'm not, what is it? It's not that I'm not still uncomfortable to a certain degree, but I refuse to not take up space because I realize when I take up space for them, I'm making room for them to be and do and act and all the things for themselves. So when I take up space as the ghetto country grandmother, I'm making room and space for somebody else that considers themselves ghetto, queer, funny looking, whatever their thing is. Because it's about taking up space that makes room. And I never saw it that way. All those fights I had, all those dudes who either punched me, and I promise you, I used to kick some ass. I ain't even gonna lie. I had to. My daddy made sure that I had to. I learned how to wrap up my knuckles when I had a fist fight. Yeah, I'm that girl. But in doing all of that fighting and taking up space, then I know that it made room for other girls to not have to go through that, to not have to do that thing. And that's what my first solo book, that damn girl stuff, that's where it stems from. Because I want to take up space so no other girl has to do that. And I did that in honor of my daughter. When people ask me, how do I do this? How am I so forthright? Believe it or not, I am an introverted person who is mostly quiet. Yes, I love a great conversation. Oh my God, I am there for a great conversation. But on most days, I sit in the quiet. I love the peace and quiet. My husband and them hate that I don't like music in the car because I love the peace and quiet. I have conversations with God. My daughter tells me I pray like I'm having coffee with him, but that's okay. But it's when you decide that, you know what, you want a business, sweetie, you got to learn how to take up space. And you take up space because you want to make room for the people who need what you have. Yes, you want to be remembered. Yes, you want to feel like your life matters. And it only matters if you take up space. Nobody else can do what the fuck they want to do because you're being quiet. And we look at our business, we get into this selfish mode. I need to make some money. I don't want a job. I don't want somebody else to tell me what to do. I don't want somebody else to dictate how much money I have. But what it really is you want to be remembered. You don't want to be dismissed. You don't want to be forgotten. And so you get out here and you decide, you know what? I am my brand. And y'all know in my world, that is some fuck shit. A brand is too much weight for one person, especially if you want to grow and scale, especially if you want to be something bigger or you want to do something bigger. For me, it's about connecting the dots of life, brand, and business because I don't believe in work-life balance. I wrote a book called Balance is Bullshit because it's all my fucking life. Everything that I do within my business, even the boundaries that I create around the ghetto country grandmother, it's my fucking life. And I tell people that I don't share my family because they're not props, but it's also because I get to keep something to myself as a business owner. I hate when I hear people saying we have a right to know. Yes, there are certain things that you should know, you might want to know, but you don't have the right. But that does not mean that you don't have the right to take up space and say, you know what, you can come here and you can't go any further. This is my business. This is how I make my money. This is how I do my thing. This is how I turn Neil into a trophy husband. This is how I help Morgan travel the world. And so taking up space means more than, you know what? It's all about me. Ghetto Country Grandmother isn't all about me. And when I hear the people talk about, you know what, we love you. I love to hear you talk. I love to hear you speak. And it's because it's making room for them to open their fucking mouths and speak, to take up space of their own. And so you're leaving a ripple effect, excuse me, you're leaving a ripple effect that you have no clue is happening. I heard someone tell me the other day that they were talking to their client about me, that you have to have a good name, about being the ghetto country grandmother in Brandma's house. I never would have thought that. I never would have known that had he not shared it with me. But it means that, you know what? I'm making room for him to talk to his clients. And while I don't take the credit for that, I just accept it for what it is. When I talk to people about brand ego is being able to stand 10 toes down in your shit and saying, you know what? I'm cool with this. I'm cool with the brand identity that I built based on the code of the DNA. I'm getting all into my process. And I know you guys don't know that. So it's kind of counterintuitive or whatever the word is to talk about it. But it's with an understanding that when you're doing something, when you're building something, if you want to be a business or if you want to own a business, that's great. But in order to take up space in that business, you got to be fucking famous for something. And so whatever that thing is for you, however you want to take up space, baby, I'm sorry. But being a business of one, you got to learn to endorse your business. I don't pitch, I don't use sales tactics. I endorse my business. I endorse my business by the clients that I serve. When I talk about my business, I talk about them because it's about their successes, what they needed from me. And it's why I nurture and it's why I do it as a done with you thing. Because you know what? Right now, somebody needs me to help them take up space. Somebody needs me standing there beside them because it's making room for them, telling them that, you know what? Okay, let's do this thing right here. This is how we're going to build out your code. And they get to be part of that. But when you work with another brand strategist, they say, oh, give me all the answers. Okay, this is how you should do your thing. My most recent client, he told me that we both met in a program. And while there was all this plethora of information, all this knowledge and all of this, I get it, I get it, I get it. He didn't know what his next step should be. He didn't know how to apply it to his life, his brand, or his business. And so it felt like wasted time. And he was ready to give up. But when you allow yourself the wherewithal, the possibility of taking up space and acknowledging that you want to be famous for something, sweetie, you don't have to beat people over the head with it. And you don't have to become a fucking content creator. Everything is content, can be put in context of everything of this part of who I am is content. The rest I get to keep for me. I don't have to share that with you. I don't have to share it with nobody. I am a very transparent person and at the same time, very private. I don't like everybody up in my business. Those who are closest to me that know when I nut the fuck up, you know what, leave her alone. She's going to be all right. They also know when you call me for something, and this is Phyllis, when they call Phyllis, sweetie, am I showing up with the bat or the bottle? Are we fighting or are we crying over a drink? What are we doing? How do you need me to show up in this moment? Because I promise you, even at 57, I know how to put on a do-rag. I know how to show up. Let me just put it that way. I haven't had to do that in years, but trust and believe, I don't shy away from it because I grew up fighting. So it's just part of my Phyllis's DNA. As a ghetto country grandmother, I'm not fighting you for shit. It's why I don't believe in competition. I'm not fighting you over some clients. Sweetie, whoever wants you and whoever wants me, they're going to choose because you're taking up space for them to make room for them as I'm taking up space over here to do this thing for them. And people are going to go where they see the most value. So talking about it on a competitive level, ain't my business. My business is to nurture. My business is to make sure that, is this a brand you want to build? Okay, let's get to it. I show up to help you do that thing. Your business is for you. And the thing about it is that You have certain things, certain gifts, talents, and abilities that you can monetize. That is fucking fabulous. But there are things that you don't know that you have to learn in order to run a business. And those are different. And I'll say, I think I've said it before, tips, tricks, and hacks have a place once you reach a certain level. But you have to get to a point where you start investing in your education on how to run your business. If you forever plan to be a business of one, baby, that's cool. That is cool. But you still now have to do all of the accounting. You have to do all the legal shit. You have to read all the contracts. You have to do all of the invoicing. You're not making room for your greatness, which is the thing that you monetize in the first place. And I know you don't want to step out of that comfort zone. Can't I just do what I do well? Why I got to do all this shit? I'm not good at sales. I don't want to. But the thing is, you have to until you don't have to. Everything that you everything that you do in your business is you want to at least grow enough to take some shit off your plate. Sweetie, nobody says you have to grow on scale to be a conglomerate. But if that's your dream, it's still starting here as a business of one and what you have the capacity to do as a business of one. You have to take up enough space to make room for your fucking self. And it's with the understanding that I'm not saying I'm arrogant. I'm not saying that I'm all that in a bag of chips. Yes, I'm that fucking old. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I have to make room for me to be able to grow and move. Because if you try to stay confined in that one little small space, sweetie, trust and believe, you're going to squish the life out of your business. You're going to suffocate your business because you refuse to make room for yourself. And the only way to make that room is to take up space. Take up space in the industry. Take up space in the market. Take up space in the community. You have to take up space. And it may not be comfortable now, but it will get comfortable. I promise you, it will. One of the things I do with my clients is I don't talk about vision statements. I talk about contemplation because contemplation is actionable. Contemplation is like not thinking about shit based on answers that you've already been given. Contemplation is about sitting in your shit and figuring it out. It's like, okay, this is the thing. This works for me. But when you rely so much on all of the experts, and I'm not saying you do need some expert advice, but you need to know how to make that work for you. Because one of the things I realized is we're looking at companies, when we look at these experts, one of the things that I realized, especially being a 57-year-old, is that looking at certain individuals and how big their business is and how great they are. See, a lot of them started when there was no social media. So they know how to fucking fight. They know how to get in there and get down in the weeds of it because they had to. There was no social media. They had to actually talk to people. They had to network to the point of making connections and then saying, you know what, you help me do this, I'll help you do that. They had to invest in education. And I'm not talking about a 4-year education. I think every business person needs to have a fucking business coach. I really do. Because it's the only way that you can make room for yourself. You have to find a way to, when you take up that space, to make room for yourself. And business coaches are great for that. Business coaches are the ones that ask you the right questions that you can't ask yourself. That's what coaches do. I'm sorry. That's what they do. They ask you all the questions because they want to help you discover the answer for yourself. That's you sitting in your shit and contemplating, what do I really want? Whereas a consultant, totally different vibe. An advisor, totally different vibe. One's going to fix a problem. One's going to point out the problem. There's different levels to this. So when you have that business coach, though, they help you sit in your shit and say, you know what? This doesn't work for me anymore. This is what I want from this. This is how I want to do this. And that's what they do. And some of them are really good at it. Some of them full of fuck shit, but I ain't gonna clown too much. But what I want you to do as a solopreneur, I want you to start finding ways to be okay with taking up space, using your voice. And like I say, I'm not about you being a brand. I don't think that's your job. Your brand has a job. Being the ghetto country grandmother, that's its job is to be personable. It's to endorse my business of Brandma's house. It is not to have everybody all up in my business. So I want you to ask yourself something about how you want to take up space. If you're going to take up space to make room for other folks or for yourself, what type of content are you going to put out? Where are you going to put that content? And how does it sound? How does it sit with you? Everybody wasn't meant to talk. Everybody wasn't meant to be on video. Everybody wasn't meant to be a writer. And I'm sorry, babies, but if that is not your thing, you have to do it enough. At least one of those things. Do it enough to make space. To take up space. Because if nobody hears you, if no one knows that you're out here doing this thing, then you know what? Like I said, you're staying in that box and you're choking off your business. Solopreneurs do a lot of feast and famine type work. Like one day they're up and one day they're down. And we see people draw graphs and all that stuff. Oh, I made $1,000 a day. Oh, I didn't make any money for the next 3 days. And it's because you haven't learned to take up space for yourself. And that's what, believe it or not, branding and marketing do those things. Someone asked me, how do I promote my business? No, and that's not what she asked me. She asked me, how do I promote myself for my business? You shouldn't. Sweetie, you're not a promotional product. I'm sorry. It's not about promoting you. And if you want to grow and scale, sweetie, you have to think bigger than you. And when you say that I am my brand, you're actually limiting the growth of your business because you're putting all the weight of everything that goes on you. When you say I'm my business, really? So then when you try to hire somebody and you take all the credit for what that person does, seriously? How long you think that shit's gonna last? I don't know if y'all can hear my husband's in the kitchen singing. That's his happy place. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. I want you to start learning how to take up space. And I'm not talking about going all overboard and doing some crazy shit that is totally out of character for you. Because the only thing that you have to do is you have to take up space long enough to endorse your business so your business brand can do its thing. Because the thing about the business brand, while you can only extend so far because you're one person, because you are a because you're a business of one, your reach only goes so far. But the thing about it, when they start talking about your business, then you know what? Everybody else in their mama get to amplify your voice. They get to magnify the things that make you great or makes the business great. Somebody told me the other day, they wrote, everybody should have a Phyllis. No, everybody shouldn't. Now, I agree, everybody should have a ghetto country grandmother, but not everybody should have a Phyllis. Phyllis is batshit crazy on a good day. I own it. I seriously do. But having everyone have a ghetto country grandmother, I know how I'm going to scale my business. I know what I have for my future. I know how it looks. I've contemplated it and it finally came to me. Because my clients told me, my early clients, we don't want any other grandmothers. But the thing about it, not everybody can handle or can take me, but they want a grandmother. They want somebody that's going to sit there in the weeds with them. It's like, help me figure this shit out. So when I start scaling when I start scaling Brandma's house, there are going to be other grandmothers, but they won't all be ghetto country. Some may be, I don't know what their names will be, but it'll be based on me licensing out this thing. And that's how I plan to grow and scale. That's how I plan to let Brandma's house take up space. Because Phyllis will at some point start to take a back seat. Ghetto country grandmother at some point will start to take a back seat. because I've allowed Brandma's house. I want the magnification on Brandma's house because I can only reach so far. I limit myself already. When I do Branded University, I only let in 7 to 10 people. That's it. And that's because we're working 9 to 12 months together. We're doing this thing. When I do branded timeout, that's 13 weeks. Still only 7 to 10 people. Because I'm that person, I want you to look me in my eye. Because if I see that you're confused, then somewhere down the line it's going to get fucked up if I leave you by yourself. So I'm right here with you, baby. How are we going to do this? What do you want? What are we trying to do? You need that accountability. You need that guidance. You need that cheerleader. That's why I work the way that I do. I don't want to do a one-to-many. I don't want to do a course of any kind. And that may be true for me now because a lot of people can't do it on their own with a course. I paid for, way back when, because I know people pay a lot more for it now. I paid for Danielle Leslie's was it course from scratch? That's what it was. I paid for that back in the day. Never used it. Never used it. One, I didn't have the network to use it because there are certain things that you should have in place if you're going to take that course. I'm not going to down it. I'm not going to drag it through the mud. I'm just going to say it wasn't fucking for me. My husband still bitches about that $1,300. But having an online course, certain things you can do. Other things, everything is not DIY. Everything is not DFY. Sometimes you just want somebody to say, you know what, will you do this with me? And with that being my business model, means I can't do a one-to-many. I'm only one person, and I'm cool with that. That's how I take up space. I make room for them to come over here and say, you know what? Can you help me do this? You fucking right, I will. It's not your responsibility to save the world. And this is why I said I can't help people who are just chasing money. It's just not in me to do so. I want my clients to make all the money. I promise you. I tell if you ask any of my clients, it's like, okay, first thing I ask them, what's your price? Okay, by this time I want you to raise this price to this. I tell all my clients to raise their prices because if there is value there, then we have to learn how to talk about the value. You have to learn how to take up space to talk about the value. Because otherwise you're just going to tell them, this is what I can do for you. I do this. I do this. I do. You make it about you. So you're not giving them room. You're not making room for them. You are confined in this space that is all about me. And it's not. I'm sorry. I'm all for putting my clients first. You come first in your brand. I will own that shit till I can't own it no more. But then after we finish building out this brand so that you're insulated in a way that you can show up and take up space to make room for other folks, then it's all about them. I had to fill my cup first. And my husband and my daughter helped me do that. After that, then it becomes all about my clients. That's why my clients are fam. They're more than clients to me, and they know that. I have a client called the ethical strategist. She does policies and procedures, and her oh my gosh, she's just fucking amazing. I won't go into detail, but she's fam now. She's so much fam that she calls my husband half loaf and he calls her big bread. And this stems from, we were having a session and what was it? Somehow they got on the subject of bread because he came and he interrupted the session and they got on the subject of bread and she was talking about how big the bread is in the UK. And Neil's like, damn. And so he started calling her big bread. And when she saw our loaf of bread here in the US, she said, oh, he's just half loaf. So whenever they hear, when I'm in a session with her, he like, hey, half loaf. She's like, no, she says, hey, big, yeah. See, I'm getting them confused. She says, hey, half loaf. He say, what up, big bread? Because she's fam. She's technically my client, but they now have at least that rapport. One of my other clients, Ebony, she's the ratchet sage. She calls my daughter Niecy because Morgan will come in and Morgan will strike a pose And the ratchet sage will start striking poses because they are now fam. And that's how I run my business. That's not for everybody, but it's because I'm that invested in them that I'm willing to share my family with them. I take up that space to make room for them. I want them to have room. I want solopreneurs to stop surviving and learn how to thrive. And when people keep giving you fish, sweetie, that's still you surviving. Until somebody teaches you how to fish or give you that fucking pole, it's never going to do anything other than keep you spending money on how to survive. When you learn how to do your own thing, when I tell you how to strategically grow your brand, you may come back every now and then for advice. You may book a consult or whatever, not having a problem in this area. But for the most part, now you know how to grow and scale your brand. If you need some advice on this, then you know what? Now I'm here in an advisory role because you no longer need me as your brand strategist because you now have room to do all of your shit. I didn't know then what I know now because of them. The reason I can show up as powerfully as I do, because people ask me, why am I don't know. They just ask me different questions. Like it says, the whole, I want to be able to do, no, you don't want to be able to do like me. You want to be able to do like you. I'm here to help you do you. That's all. But the thing that my daughter helped me do, how she helped me take up space, is when I wrote my memoir, it was technically for her. And it's because I had to stop using my past as a weapon against myself. I had to decide that, you know what? I can't be ashamed of this anymore because it was leaving me stuck. I was staying stuck in that small box. Nobody knew what the fuck I wanted to be famous for. Back when I had the business with my husband, I thought I wanted to be famous for being Mrs. Mister. I'm going to help my husband grow all of these different restaurants. We got to our second restaurant, was talking about doing a third, and I'm like, no, it's not my dream. It was his. My husband is the cook of the family. He's the holiday cook. He's the grocery shopper. He's the food man in here. And so I had to learn to take up my own space. And you got to learn to do the same. Finding that thing that helps you move into a place where, you know what, it's okay to be weird, to be eclectic, to be all the things. Because the uniquest thing about your brand is you. People talk about differentiation. Sweetie, you're the difference. You're whatever that person is doing over there, you're doing over here. It's packaged differently. There's no competition. You can make comparisons. I don't give a fuck. You can compare me to whoever you want to. You can't be me. You can't show up like me for my clients. It's a bad imitation. One of the concerns I used to have in talking about growing and scaling my business, if I ever want to hire a copywriter, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. I really don't. Because the Ghetto Country's grandmother, her voice is my voice. But then how I fix that to a certain degree. Brandma's house has its own voice. Yes, it drops some F-bombs and bitches and hoes and whatever, but it has its own voice. So I get to keep mine. The Ghetto Country grandmother gets to have a separate voice. But it all stems from me. My personal brand has values that my business brand does not. Because when you're building out this brand as a business of one, sweetie, you got to separate the two. You have to have a personal brand because you're the face right now. But you have to have a business brand because that's the thing that's going to fucking grow. That's why your personal brand becomes an endorser brand. You don't have to be a brand. You don't have to take on that mantle just because somebody said so. I know people think Gary Vee is a brand, Chris Do is a brand, Richard Branson is a brand. No, they're individuals. They're people. They're successful people, but they are not brands. They're influential, but they're not brands. And I know there are so many people that disagree with me. I'm saddened by the fact that people think they have to brand themselves in order to get a job. Seriously? So if you're the brand when you get the job, who the fuck are you when you have the job? Do you go back to being yourself? Somebody make it make sense. I know it's not a popular opinion, and I really don't give a fuck. I think putting the weight of a brand on a person is asking for too much. Is you asking them, you know what, tell me all your shit. Tell me all your business. And I see people doing it constantly. The whole mantra of everything is content, people have taken that literally within their business. So I'm showing you and I'm exposing my whole life to you. Yeah, there are some intimate moments that I keep to myself, but trust and believe, not enough. Not enough. You can take up space without having to share everything. You can take up space and make room for others without feeling like, you know what, I have to put out this content. If you're not a content creator, sweetie, it's not content, it's marketing. It's content marketing. Having a strategy behind your marketing, if it's content, sweetie, plan that shit out. Stop using your family and your food for props. I just don't care that, well, I don't care that deeply. Your supporters may. That's what I wanted to share with you guys today. Learn to take up space. Open your fucking mouth. And if opening your mouth is not it, write it down. If you can't write a fucking book, write a carousel. But you have to take up space. You have to be able to put something out into the universe so people know and recognize this is what I'm famous for. That's the thing. So I'm done now. I feel my family moving around. It's 4 p.m. and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and end this. So 5, bullshit happens. So suck it up. 4, your voice is important. So speak up. 3, you make the world a more beautiful place. So show up. 2, life is good. So buck up. And 1, I love you and ain't a damn thing you can do about it. So shut the fuck up. Peace and hair grease, y'all. I'm out.